The insane Navy's folding VTOL jet, a real-life transformer. What is common between flying cars and helicopters? Well, that has to be the vertical takeoff and landing technology. If you think this is a new idea, well, you are wrong, because back in 1976, Grumman had an ambitious project for an aircraft that had a folding fuselage, which would facilitate vertical takeoff and landing, which can then be deployed by cruisers, destroyers, or any ship that is capable of carrying helicopters that time. The problem with traditional aircraft is that almost all of them have horizontal takeoff and landing systems. Well, it might work for civilian aircrafts, but for military or naval forces, that might not be the best way to land an aircraft, especially if they want to land an aircraft in the middle of an ocean, which is why vertical takeoff and landing aircrafts make a lot of sense in these scenarios. The reason we have so many aircrafts with horizontal landing over vertical landing is because vertical landing aircrafts need more power than horizontal landing to get to the sky. But back in the 1970s, Grumman Aerospace Corporation was a little ambitious with a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Now, for those of you who don't know, the company behind a very ambitious vertical takeoff and landing aircraft is Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, which was later renamed to Grumman Aerospace Corporation. And this was a leading 20th century American producer of military and civilian aircraft. The company was founded way back on December 6, 1929, and it was merged in 1994 with Northrop Corporation to form Northrop Grumman. Nutcracker was the name given to a project that was started in the mid-1970s by Grumman Aerospace Corporation for a vertical short takeoff and landing aircraft to largely meet the requirements of the U.S. Navy for such an aircraft. During the 1990s, the most important requirement was to use vertical short takeoff and landing aircraft for smaller types of ships for the U.S. Navy. The entire tail of the fuselage with engines and tail units could be tilted downwards by up to 90 degrees. For the development of the Nutcracker aircraft, two Grumman OV-1 Mohawk machines were selected as test machines because they were structurally really good. The Nutcracker was developed as submarine hunters, fighter bombers, and transporters, but it could also have several civil uses as well. We don't have much information about how this aircraft lands with its folding fuselage configuration, but it looks like it requires a very special platform and a docking arm to land it safely. With all of these ambitious designs, the practicality of this aircraft back in the day was still questionable. The project was later discontinued for obvious reasons. The reason why these aircrafts are exciting is because of their ability to fly from small ships such as merchant vessels, and possibly from mini aircraft carriers as well. But what else can be more exciting? Well, that would be you subscribing to our channel for more tech videos just like this one. And make sure to turn on post notifications because we don't want you to miss out on any of our tech videos. Also, smash that like button if you think this aircraft was ahead of its time. The aircraft provided the kind of utility that cannot be accomplished by any other nuclear carriers or land-based aircraft. This new design also promised the ability to supply men and equipment to big offshore oil rigs and other deep ocean installations, apart from the military applications of this aircraft. Yes, helicopters were already doing the work back then, but it was not the ideal one, which is why such a new approach to an entirely new type of airline was conceived way back in 1976, and it was quite futuristic as well. Back in the day, there were so many concepts similar to this one, but the problem was that most of them did not cross the prototype stage. Back in the 1970s, the technology was not so advanced for something like this. And the most difficult part when designing an airplane that can do vertical takeoff and landing would be to handle the transition part really well. That is, the transition to a transformer-looking aircraft. The aircraft is supposed to be under perfect control as it moves forward to hover. The problem is that if the aircraft is slowed down to hover, the conventional wings no longer get the lift from the forward airspeed and might stall, and in many cases will lose lift rather abruptly and things can go out of control. So the only design approach to fix this problem would be to include engines with movable ducts that can divert jet or propeller blast downward, which is why tilting engines on wings or fuselage and complex lift fans powered by jet blast made a lot of sense. The Nutcracker also achieved precise altitude control because of the fact that the jet blast goes directly over the tail controls. With all these, the Nutcracker is a very fascinating idea, and the Grumman and their engineers were clearly thinking out of the box with this aircraft. This aircraft was truly ahead of its time because vertical takeoff and landing was not common back in the day. Usually with a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, it's all about including a fixed-wing aircraft that can hover, take off, and land vertically just like helicopters, and they are powered by tilt rotors. Some of the vertical takeoff and landing aircraft can operate in other modes as well, like conventional takeoff-landing, short takeoff and landing, and a combination of short takeoff and vertical landing. For an aircraft to take off or land vertically, the powerful exhaust gases from a jet engine can be directed downwards as well as backwards, and the direction can be changed in mid-flight. This will allow the fixed-wing aircraft to take off vertically and fly forward, or maybe stop in mid-air and land vertically. The best part about vertical takeoff and landing aircrafts is that these can land like normal airplanes as well. The Grumman G674 Nutcracker will be known as a very ambitious project in the aviation industry, especially considering that this was a part of the US Navy's exotic new family of fighters and transport aircraft that had both vertical and short takeoff and landing abilities. Ultimately, choosing the right kind of takeoff and landing system will depend upon the ambitions of a company and the utility of the aircraft, along with the expertise of engineers involved. Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft will make a lot of sense for military and naval applications, which is why we had something like the Nutcracker way back in 1976. And this concept is still relevant today after all these years. Vertical takeoff and landing will be a better choice because of the simplified aerodynamics. But again, it might not be as efficient as horizontal takeoff and landing systems with the technology that we have today.